Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Benjamin Cure Show on this Monday, March 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Benjamin Cure, and we are now celebrating 3 years of the Benjamin Cure Show. I could not be more grateful to you guys. This does feel like a family, and being away from you guys for 2 weeks was honestly more difficult than I thought it would be. I was missing this sincerely for the past few days or so. Last week was tough towards the end because obviously I'm working a lot of things beyond this show in school and professionally as well, but this is always a great point to talk about sports with you guys, reset, and I'm so glad that we have that back now, and we're back stronger than ever. We're going to power through, and we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, I have some things to recap that happened over the break, but I don't want to focus too much on that because there is so much going on in the midst of the sports world right now. So I want to start first with the Lakers, who have won 16 out of their last 19 games, I believe. 12 out of 14 since Luka arrived, or since he started playing for them. And this team beat the Clippers just last night at 9:30. It was an NBA League Pass game, so I caught the highlights this morning. And they also beat the Denver Nuggets last week, which felt like a really important win for them. And at this point, the Lakers are now the second seed in the West, and I have no reason to believe that they're not capable of winning an NBA championship. And I know that may seem very crazy or very cerebral, but I really don't think it is. At the end of the day, I always believed it would be tough for LeBron James to win another championship with him as the first best player. And there's not many players above him. I've always said, even though I don't think LeBron James is a top 10 player in the NBA consistently, I think he can be a top 10 player or a top 10 performer on any given night because that's how great he is, and his body's obviously in great condition, and he takes care of himself, and he is so much more committed to this game than literally everybody else that at 40-plus years of age, it really doesn't matter. The age thing really is just a number for LeBron. But now, I found myself wondering if he would ever win another ring, and I didn't think it would happen with him being the best player on the team. And to me, AD's great. AD can give you nights where he was like a top 5 defensive player or a top 5 rebounder in the NBA on a nightly basis every once in a while, last season, this season. But to me, he wasn't the guy that was going to lead a Lakers team to a championship or to an extended postseason run in front of LeBron. LeBron still was very much so the captain of that team, the captain of that ship, even though AD became more of a vocal leader as things went on, and a little bit hypocritically or ironically so, right before he was traded unexpectedly. But now that we have Luka Doncic in the mix in a big market, which I do think matters because the NBA feels so much more exciting today than it did 3 months ago, and that is undeniable. Well, Ben, football season was going on 3 months ago. I agree, and I'm the first one who tells you football season overshadows a lot of great sports, great athletes, and great storylines out there. But right now, the NBA just has a different feel to it. And if you don't think that the majority of that reason is Luka Doncic going to the Lakers, at least 50% of that hype, you're totally out of it, and you have no understanding of what sports media and TV and what public interest is. So now that the Lakers have Luka, and now that they're in rhythm, and JJ Redick has these boys schemed up to the max, and we know that Luka and LeBron are both master manipulators of spacing and everything else that they do on the court, and are masters of pace, and are great at getting the ball to each other and really distributing and creating shots for other people. That team is lethal. And to me, the biggest worry was obviously if you brought in Luka, what's going to happen to your defense? And that was probably the biggest worry for the Lakers and the biggest concern for most NBA fans, which is, hey, this is going to be a really fun offensive team. This is going to be like the Miami Dolphins 2 years ago where the offense is unstoppable, but literally the defense is like Swiss cheese. Anybody can get through. Now it feels very different. JJ Redick, if you don't think that coaching matters in the NBA, I invite you to look to no other place than JJ Redick with the Lakers. JJ Redick should be, and I believe is, the front runner for Coach of the Year. And to me, he undeniably, undisputedly deserves that award because coaching does matter. And JJ Redick was a brilliant analyst. I always enjoyed watching him on First Take, cutting it up with Stephen A, and really schooling those guys on a regular basis. But JJ Redick is an amazing basketball mind, and he's a true student of the game. And you hear that phrase thrown around all the time. JJ Redick is the poster child, and he's the textbook definition for what a student of the game is, should be, and what they are, essentially. JJ Redick has now made this offensive powerhouse, this juggernaut, into a truly, really solid defense, so much more than I expected them to be. Everybody said, well, congratulations to the Lakers. You got one of the brightest superstars in the NBA in Luka Doncic. You traded for one of the best shooters in the NBA, but you also traded for a defensive liability, and you got rid of your best defensive player by a mile. Look at the way these guys are playing. Look at the buy-in that the Lakers have on the defensive side of the floor. We know they're amazing offensively. We know what Luka can do. We know who LeBron is, even at 40-plus years of age. We know what Austin Reeves has become now. He is playing so free, which is a story. I could do a whole 10-minute rant on that. He is playing better basketball than he's ever played, and it's so obvious to me, that he is playing more free than ever, and it has to do with Luka taking the pressure off him. And now, if you're a 2, you were told you're going to be a 3 now. And if you were a 3, you're going to be a 4. And it just lightens the load for everybody on the Lakers team in terms of Luka is now the leader offensively of that team. LeBron can still be a captain in the locker room and is still one of the best players in the NBA, make no mistake. But that burden of having to carry a team and on back-to-backs and on road trips at 40-plus years of age, that is no longer there. There is something to be said about the star power of Luka seemingly taking off not only on the court burdens, but a little bit of the off the court stuff too. And LeBron looks like he's playing more free than ever. And it is undeniable. You see people talk about this on Twitter. You watch the clips, not just of LeBron on the court and of how free he's playing and how smooth he's playing, but also like his off the court reactions or his reactions on the bench when he's talking with teammates. He looks happier than he's ever been. I wouldn't be surprised if he's more invigorated than he's been in 2-3 years. Playing alongside his son was already an amazing storyline, but having somebody like Luka Doncic, who was a lifelong fan of yours when he was growing up and has admitted to being a childhood fan growing up watching LeBron, idolizing LeBron, it feels like the perfect fit. And this team, once again, I'm going to pivot here, playing unbelievably solid, if nothing else, defense. And I don't want to overreact here. JJ Redick is the reason why this Lakers team is playing so well, and he is the reason why they are the second seed in the East, because, yes, I love LeBron, and to me, he's not a top 10 player in the NBA, but he can be a top 10 player on any given night. Austin Reeves is playing his best basketball. The Lakers as a whole are buying in onto their assignments. They are buying into the coaching. Luka, of course, need I say more, but the defensive buy-in of these guys is just something that is truly remarkable and truly unbelievable to me. There is nobody I would rather take in the West than the Lakers. And to me, I'm not just saying this for the storytelling sake, which I know I've admitted on this show. I tend to fall in love with my players and tend to fall in love with storylines. I'm not falling in love with an illusion here. This Lakers team is capable of winning an NBA championship. Offensively, they cannot be stopped. To me, it would be shocking if a team would find a way to outpace them offensively over a 7-game series. And defensively, the buy-in from JJ Redick and the schemes are just unbelievable. And to me, this Lakers team, they are absolutely finals bound, and I believe they'll win the entire thing. And when LeBron James does win his 5th ring at 40-plus years of age, I wonder what they'll say then. But for now, I want to move on to our next topic. So, over the weekend, a couple things happened. There was that rumor about Matthew Stafford and would he go to the Raiders or not. Giants were also looking at him. There was that talk that could he go to Brian Dable? Could he end up going to Pete Carroll and Brady? Obviously, he spent some time with him that was ruled as non-tampering because the Rams had given permission to talk to another team. He had gone on a skiing trip with Tom Brady. I don't know if that story was misreported or that he had seemingly gone on a trip where coincidentally Brady was there. I don't know what to make of that. But nonetheless, it wasn't tampering, so it really doesn't matter. Team had already given him permission to look elsewhere. But in the end, I love the decision that Matthew Stafford made, going back to L.A., back to Sean McVay, back to that roster, and not trying to get happier than happy. And as I've gotten older, people used to say that when I was younger and I didn't understand the meaning of the phrase. Don't try to get happier than happy. Matthew Stafford has incredible self-awareness, and I commend him for not making an emotional decision or not just wanting to get out of a place or move on or get over his current situation just by going on to the next one, and that may also bleed over into relationship advice and whatnot, but I'm glad that he decided to stick with it because at the end of the day, this Rams team, make no mistake, is a really strong team, and they came closer to beating the Eagles than any team in the NFC in the postseason and closer than the reigning AFC champions and the Kansas City Chiefs. So to me, it would be very tough for me to buy into Matthew Stafford going somewhere else when I'm like, you're leaving the best, arguably one of the best head coaches in the NFL, probably the second best head coach in the NFL, to go to Pete Carroll, to go to Brian Dable. Brian Dable, I thought he was an excellent offensive mind. My opinion of him has diminished over the last 2 years, and that's just like it doesn't hurt me to admit that. Brian Dable might be a great offensive play caller or might be a great offensive scheme guy, but he's like Mike McDaniel. Is he a head coach? Is he head coach material? Is he respected / feared in the locker room? I don't know if either of those things are true. So obviously I'm not I am out on Brian Daboll for now. I will say that. I think he'll make it work at his next stop, but it's not going to be fixed here with the Giants. And then when I look at Pete Carroll's a great culture builder. I love Pete Carroll as a person. I've never met him, but I would like to think that he and I would get along really well. He's a football guy, but in terms of the Raiders, he's perfect for what the Raiders need. But in that division, against those opponents, against the best teams in the AFC, even if you do make it out of your division, I'm not going to say Pete Carroll is a better head coach than Sean McVay, nor am I going to say that the Raiders roster is a better roster than that of the Rams, nor am I going to say they have a better front office. It makes sense for Matthew Stafford to stay in LA. And with that being the first major quarterback domino to fall, we can now look towards what everybody's discussing and debating this morning, which is Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers. And they got into a heated debate this morning about this on First Take, which I wasn't watching because the volume was off, but clearly there was not some animosity. They were getting animated over this topic. To me, it is undeniable. Now that the first domino has fallen with Matthew Stafford, the question is being asked, would you choose Sam Darnold or would you choose Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback next year? And to that I say, is this really even a question? I am choosing Sam Darnold every day of the week and twice on Sunday over Aaron Rodgers as to who I'm picking for my quarterback next season. Sam Darnold is younger, is less problematic, which, believe it or not, is definitely a factor in what teams are looking for. Had more touchdown passes than Aaron Rodgers, had fewer interceptions than Aaron Rodgers, had more team success, and just comes with less baggage at this point in his NFL career. And look, this is not a political thing, because I've talked about this and I've kind of hinted at it in the past. You'd be surprised on probably how many things Aaron Rodgers and I see eye to eye on, or how many things we agree on in terms of his opinions off the field. But the football stuff, here's the thing. I love Aaron. I don't love Aaron Rodgers. I love his appearances on the Pat McAfee show, and I love Pat McAfee. I can say that with full confidence, but there's a different feel between Aaron Rodgers going on the Pat McAfee show 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he was cutting up the league, and it was like a massive middle finger and FU to the establishment, and he was in the process of cooking and winning an MVP and then winning his back-to-back MVPs and going on the show and being able to talk his ish. And now, going on to the Pat McAfee show at this point in his career, where week 11, 12, and 13, he's going on there mumbling about how we've got to get better and we've got to figure it out and we've got to figure out what our identity is and we didn't play our best football and we're still figuring it out. Damn, it's week 14, it's week 13, we're in November, December, and he's saying these things in the show. It physically, as someone who enjoys watching Aaron Rodgers talk and go on interviews and podcasts and whatnot, and as someone who obviously loves, I cannot emphasize this enough, the Pat McAfee show and those guys and the kind of environment that they create for players to come on there and not give up their soul, but talk about the things that they normally wouldn't talk about in an interview and things that matter to them. As someone who's a fan of both of those things, Aaron going on in week 11 and week 12 and week 13 with his tail between his legs because his team is just garbage and because quite frankly, he's not as good as he once was, it just physically, literally physically makes me uncomfortable. I'm not a fan of it. And at this point, I really don't think it's a debate or question. It's not a I'm tearing down Aaron Rodgers thing because I have been very critical of him in the past. It's more of a Sam Darnold is the obvious choice here. Well, Ben, Sam Darnold didn't look good in the last 2 games of the year, the most important games of the year. Absolutely. But Aaron hasn't looked great in a long time. And at the end of the day, I'm going to take youth. I'm going to take coachability. I'm going to take upside physically as well as recovery if he ever does get injured over the course of a season. There's an obvious difference in those two things. More touchdowns, fewer interceptions, more team success. I'm just taking Sam Darnold, and I don't think that's crazy. Moving on to our third story and our third sport now. I kind of lumped the Matthew Stafford one with the Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers stuff. But moving on to the boxing world, where I'm sure we all saw it over the weekend. Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Roach Jr. Roach got robbed, and I'm a huge fan of Gervonta Tank Davis, but going down in the 9th round, that should have been ruled a knockdown in the 9th round when he took a knee. It is literally in the rule book. Floyd Mayweather was deducted 2 points and given a standing 8 count, or it became a 10-8 round when Floyd Mayweather did it all those years ago, because that is a knockdown, and he got a standing 8 count because of it. And Gervonta takes the knee, then runs over, to get his head wiped off or his hair, and he's claiming now it was because of the grease. It doesn't matter what the reason is. He should have been disqualified right then and there, and the referee, because of the perception of boxing, and you know what, maybe this is the problem with boxing, the inconsistencies in judging and in the rules and how we treat our stars, which people say is a football thing or an NBA thing. It's across all sports, but specifically in boxing too. They are not without sin in all of this. Going off to the side because there was something in his eyes, the grease was getting in his eyes, is what he claims, like, doesn't matter. And I know it sounds like easy for you to say, right, Ben? Easy for me to say from this chair, talking about sports as an armchair quarterback here, sort of speak. Easy for me to say. I get it. It probably stings. It probably hurts like hell. But you cannot literally violate the rules that have been clearly outlined. If you go down on your knee, it's a knockdown, which happened in the 9th round. It wasn't ruled as a knockdown, and then you go off to the side and ask your cornerman, hey, quickly, wipe my head off because the sweat and the grease is mixing and it's getting in my eyes and it's like, it's bothering me. Doesn't matter if it's irritating you. You cannot do that. It's against the rules. And so because of that reason, when you look at the scorecards mathematically, that not being a knockdown ends up being the difference in the fight. And to me, Roach should feel robbed. Roach was robbed. He should feel slighted. He should feel like that fight was stolen from him by the judges. And in the end, I hope they do run it back because it was a great fight. But Roach was the better boxer that night, and he deserved to win. And unfortunately, because of boxing and the way that it turns out, he didn't win. And that fight has massive implications. And people are going to think like this is dramatic. It's really not. That being a rule, the knee being ruled a knockdown or not, is literally the difference between Gervonta Tank Davis being undisputed, undefeated, no losses, the boxer that he is, the persona, the culture, the aura that he has. It's the difference between that and, Gervonta is not invincible. He is not unstoppable. He has a loss on his record. And so it ultimately goes down as a majority draw in the end. But, I feel terrible for Roach. I think Gervonta Tank Davis has enough self-awareness. He said in the ring he wants to run it back. But, man, should have been ruled a knockdown and should have been disqualified for stepping out of the ring or putting his head through the ropes to try and get his cornerman to quickly give him a touch-up on the head. I mean, it is what it is. So with that being said, that is all for this week's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are back. We're better than ever. I can't wait to see how this basketball season plays out, how our combat sports storylines kind of evolve from here, what's going to happen in the NFL, what's going to happen with these teams in the NFL draft, and what's going to happen in free agency, which I believe starts next week. For now, I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. I'll see you next time.